Utah's landscape of red rock cliffs and salt deserts holds not only geological beauty, but also records of psychological terror and bloody tragedy frozen in time. Behind the silence of its vast wilderness, this region is filled with settlements that preserve some of America's darkest memories. From a radical sect town that revered a corpse, to an isolated leper colony, to mining towns haunted by mass explosion tragedies and the visual curse of ancient faceless paintings. The combination of human ambitions, fragility, and the harsh law of the wild creates an intensely oppressive desert Gothic atmosphere. This is an in-depth journey through the 15 eeriest small towns in Utah. Our first journey takes us into the narrow canyon corridor of Carbon County to visit Latuda, home to one of Utah's most famous Gothic legends. Founded as a prosperous coal mining town deep in a steep canyon, Latuda became a dead town after the mines shut down, leaving behind stone building ruins now haunted by the tragic tale of the White Lady of Latuda. The story centers on the ghost of a woman in white, believed to be the wife of a miner who took her own life after her husband was buried alive underground. Across what remains of Latuda, we find a bleak landscape pressed beneath the shadow of towering canyon walls. The remains of stonehouse foundations and old concrete water tanks rise from landslide debris and thorny brush. The place gives off an intensely dark visual mood. Its geography, trapped between high cliffs, allows little sunlight to reach the town, deepening the eerie atmosphere surrounding the white figure that people still claim to see. This gold mining town once enjoyed sudden prosperity before being devastated by a massive fire and a deadly disease outbreak that killed many residents. That combination of disaster triggered a mass evacuation, leaving behind an old settlement area now largely covered by modern mining operations. The most chilling sight centers on the old pioneer cemetery, isolated on a quiet hillside. Blackened, weathered wooden grave markers and rusted iron crosses lean over dry ground covered in desert dust. The site is well known among paranormal investigators because of frequent reports of supernatural activity, including disembodied voices and loud impacts echoing from the hillside at night, creating the image of a dead settlement still holding the trauma of its past beneath the silence of the land. From the silent graveyard, our journey shifts toward a major junction in Utah County to witness the post-apocalyptic waterscape of Thistle. Thistle offers a scene of destruction that is both dramatic and horrifying. We are met with the sight of tilted wooden rooftops breaking through the calm water, alongside rotting utility poles standing in the middle of the lake. Half-submerged structures reveal ruined interiors filled with dried mud and aquatic plants, creating a truly dystopian image of how human civilization can be instantly crushed by the fury of water and earth. So how did it become like this? This once peaceful railroad town was completely destroyed within days in April 1983, when a massive landslide struck. The disaster blocked the flow of the local river and created a giant sudden lake that drowned the entire town center beneath dozens of meters of murky water. Leaving the floodwaters of Thistle, we move far south into Wayne County, where nature's ferocity broke the spirit of Giles residents. Set along the banks of the unpredictable Fremont River, Giles was founded by pioneer farmers trying to conquer the desert. But that dream turned into mass despair after repeated flash floods destroyed and submerged homes, while farmland became barren beneath layers of mud sediment. Today, Giles has fully collapsed and merged with the silent dryness of Utah's Red Rock Desert. Explorers will find only scattered stone house foundations on cracked ground, surrounded by dry desert brush. the silence in Giles feels deeply oppressive, carrying the aura of humanity's collective failure against Utah's harsh desert ecosystem, leaving a melancholy monument to a town that died from its residents' absolute despair. The next scene shows the remains of mining glory frozen in desert silence. Born from rich silver deposits, Frisco grew into one of the most violent and lawless towns in the American Wild West. Murder, gambling, and prostitution happened almost daily without legal control, until the government hired a hardline marshal who was tasked with shooting criminals dead on the spot without trial. The facades of old brick ore kilns, shaped like giant domes, stand stiffly like dead watchtowers in the barren plain. Around them, the ground is filled with broken old glass bottles, rusted debris, and shattered wooden building remains. The aura of past violence still seems deeply buried in this place. That Wild West brutality then echoes through the armed labor conflict that once paralyzed Silver Reef in Washington County. This silver mining town was unusual because its deposits were found inside sandstone formations. It was once shaken by armed labor unrest involving murder threats between worker factions. The town's strange social structure was reinforced by the layout of its cemeteries, which were deliberately separated by residents' religion and race. Here, we can still see worn old stone architecture surrounded by dry red earth. Several stone buildings stand silent, with rusted iron doors facing empty dirt roads. The divided old cemeteries on the hillside create a gloomy, rural Gothic scene. In the silence of Utah's wilderness, they show how past prejudice and social segregation followed people even into the grave. Leaving the tension of Silver Reef, we move to far western Tooele County to feel extreme geographic isolation. Buried deep in the barren salt desert near the Nevada border, Gold Hill was once a hideout for illegal activity, from commodity smuggling and prostitution to violence between isolated mining gangs operating beyond outside law. Gold Hill's physical landscape today shows a dead town that feels deeply remote and exhausting. Rows of old wooden board houses lean sideways, their walls bleached and blistered by a century of extreme desert sun. The lack of modern electricity and clean water access strengthens the feeling of isolation. When dusty winds make old shop signs creak loudly in the emptiness, Gold Hill gives off a frightening loneliness, as if civilization deliberately threw it away. Let's examine the mass tragedy in Scofield. This small town carries a dark history as the site of the Winter Quarters mine explosion on May 1st, 1900, a toxic gas disaster that killed hundreds of workers in an instant and left mass grief among widows and orphans who lost the men in their families in one day. In several corners, Scofield gives off a thick and oppressive social gloom. On the edge of town, old rusted railroad tracks sit beside rows of mass graves for mining victims covering the hillside. The place is known for an urban myth about a headless miner's ghost walking near the mouth of a dead tunnel sealed with concrete. Yes, the cold silence surrounding Scofield creates a chilling documentary landscape. The mining explosion trauma in Scofield finds its cinematic twin near Castle Gate, a place marked by toxic gas disaster and dark criminal history. This mining town, named after giant rock formations resembling a castle gate, was shaken by a massive methane gas explosion that killed hundreds of workers. In another part of its history, Castle Gate is also known as the site of an iconic bloody train robbery carried out by Butch Cassidy's Outlaw gang. Today, Castle Gate has been almost completely erased from the map of active settlements, leaving a grand geological landscape that still holds an aura of death. A camera facing the gap between the giant cliffs captures the empty valley where the town once stood. The remains of dark mine tunnel openings at the base of the cliffs dominate the view, giving off an eerie atmosphere of an underground space that once became both a grave for workers and an escape route for Wild West criminals. Next comes the cold and troubling portrait of a dead settlement in Iosepa. Here, we are met only by a stretch of barren grassland, where an old cemetery with gravestones bearing Polynesian names stands in silence. The ruins of stone house foundations, slowly being covered by desert soil, give off the deep gloom of a place once isolated by the stigma of contagious disease, creating a tragic monument to the end of an immigrant community in the harsh landscape of Utah. Founded in the late 19th century as a settlement for Hawaiian converts, Iosepa first grew as a neat farming oasis in the middle of the desert. The fate of this unusual community turned grim after it was struck by an outbreak of leprosy, forcing the area into strict isolation as a leper colony until the remaining residents finally chose to abandon the town completely. From the disease colony of Iosepa, we jump ahead in time to Grand County to witness the modern dystopian ruins of Cisco. Unlike a ghost town from the 19th century pioneer era, Cisco offers a different kind of horror through a serial killer vibe, like something out of a modern slasher film. This former gas stop and railroad town, killed off by the construction of a new interstate highway, is filled with the abandoned debris of modern civilization. A camera moving through Cisco's roads would capture scenes that feel deeply unsettling. Rows of broken wooden cabins stand beside the rusted shells of 1970s cars, their fuel tanks blown out and corroded. Building walls are covered in faded graffiti, shattered glass lies scattered across the ground, and the interiors are filled with torn old mattresses and piles of discarded clothing. Cisco gives off a raw and chilling dystopian atmosphere, showing the decay of modern civilization in the middle of a lonely desert. Leaving behind the modern dystopia of Cisco, we arrive at a small inhabited town that hides an invisible danger. Unlike a true ghost town, Eureka still has a few hundred residents, but they live surrounded by toxic lead pollution left behind by the town's mining past beneath their feet. The town is also well known among spiritual communities for several old houses said to have intense paranormal activity. Its historic district presents the image of an aging and uneasy inland town. Rows of old red brick commercial buildings stand beside homes with cracked wooden walls. Government warning signs about dangerous soil contamination sit alongside the town's quiet streets, creating an eerie sense of chemical poison lingering in the ground. That feeling is made even more unsettling by the mystical aura of empty houses abandoned by their owners because of supernatural experiences. From the invisible danger in Eureka, we move into a remote canyon in Grand County, where the dead town of Sego is surrounded by ancient terror. This decaying coal mining town, tucked inside a narrow canyon, has left behind crumbling stone and wooden buildings. But the most frightening element shaping Sego's atmosphere is the presence of mysterious ancient cliff paintings in the Barrier Canyon style, created by native people thousands of years ago on the towering rock walls directly above the town. The focus here lies in the strange and mystical contrast between the workers' ruined homes and those cliff paintings. That heavy ancient aura gives Sego a unique visual horror, blending the death of modern industry with the spiritual mystery of prehistory. Let's visit a spot along the Virgin River in Washington County at the site of the ghost town of Grafton, frozen in time. Founded by pioneer farmers, Grafton endured a dark history marked by the bloody Black Hawk War against native tribes, which killed many residents, along with repeated river flooding that kept damaging farmland until the town was completely abandoned. Its condition today presents an iconic yet eerie rural Gothic scene. Thanks to preservation efforts, the wooden church, the red brick schoolhouse, and the pioneer homes still stand upright, completely empty, and without residents. Walking among these preserved but vacant buildings creates a chilling Gothic image. The clean yet dark windows reflect the shadows of the surrounding poplar trees. Grafton's old cemetery, filled with the graves of victims from past massacres, now lies frozen as a silent dead space beneath the towering cliffs of Zion. Hidden deep in the barren plains of San Juan County, Home of Truth stands as a center of psychological horror born from radical cult fanaticism in the 1930s. Led by a woman named Marie Ogden, this isolated settlement was founded as a sacred place for followers who believed in her prophecy of the world's end. The atmosphere turned terrifying when Ogden began practicing corpse worship. She refused to bury one of her dead followers, instead keeping the body inside a cabin, bathing it in oil, and trying to bring it back to life through spiritual power. Yes, Home of Truth presents a scene of old wooden cabins standing rigid under the burning desert sun. The extreme silence here feels deeply unnatural, while the wooden structure once used to keep the corpse still stands, with its dark open doors and windows. The desert wind moaning through the cracks in the boards gives off a heavy cult-like aura, showing how a small place can become completely poisoned by mystical delusion far removed from human reason.